someone can get, whatever kind of fix for 8 to 10 weeks, but have we given them the tools to maintain that for the lifetime? It's what it comes down to is, awesome, the scale went down because, whatever, you're on a juice cleanse or you're drinking a lot and, it's just food volume and waste. Or yes, you feel better because now all of a sudden you're eating these one ingredient foods, but are you sustaining that? Have you navigated Christmas? Have you navigated going on the boat with the girlfriends and, gone through those periods of, oh, fuck, I did overeat and, I had too many drinks. Hey, coach, what happened? Like, great. Let's learn from that. Let's keep going. That is lifestyle. It's not about like this 8 or 10, and that's what's going to carry you over the long term. And here again, what have you done for the last 20 years? Well, we aren't going to erase the mindsets, the habits, and then again, all the people that surround you or you have surrounded yourself with, like that's living life. Like that is coaching people through the life that they're living, and then getting them to see, hey, listen, you know what? You want to get to Z. Well, you know what? We need to go through A, B, and C first, and you may realize some things on the way. What if you say, hey, listen, that's not for me? Well, that's great. Let's just navigate the plan. Let's zig and zag. And nothing is straight linear. That's not life in anything.
Let's link up with Krysta on the FYX. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
What's up, FYX listeners? Welcome to episode 66 of the FYX Podcast. I'm your host, Krysta Huber, and today I am joined by not one, not two, but three amazing guests for this episode. One of them is actually a return guest to the show. That is my very own nutrition coach, Sonia Spil. And she is joined with me alongside two of her podcast co-hosts. We talk about their podcast, which is called Unnamed and Untamed, throughout this conversation. And that is Meredith Paci and Sarah Ford Bishop. These three ladies are all nutrition coaches, and combined, I was trying to do the math on how much coaching experience we all have together, and it is well over a decade. And I'm really excited to share this conversation today because while each of these women could spit facts and knowledge about science, what they really pride themselves on is application. And we spent a lot of time talking about what gets women stuck, specifically focusing in on the stories that we tell ourselves in terms of the roadblocks that we face in reaching our goals. And in keeping with the theme of Women's History Month and highlighting amazing females, I really wanted to spend time talking to them about some of the actual stories that come up that we experience ourselves or we see our clients saying as reasons why they're not able to get to a certain goal. And Meredith summed it up really well in saying, we ourselves are our biggest excuse. And we talk about everything from having an all or nothing mindset, learning how to operate from a place of abundance versus a place of scarcity. We talk about the desire for wanting instant gratification, and a whole lot more. But this is an episode you'll want to listen to and take notes on if you're at a point where you've really tried a lot of different routes, methods, tools, whatever you want to call them in your wellness journey, and you still feel stuck. And it's going to force you to really ask yourself some questions that you might not want to answer because deep down you do know what that exact answer is. And I appreciate all three of these ladies for their candor and for them showing up and demonstrating a genuine passion for their clients and also just being able to be relatable. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And with that, let's kick the mic over to Meredith, Sonia, and Sarah.
I don't really know. Like,
It's a hard question.
That's a really hard question because I'm like the opposite of like a toot your own horn kind of thing. How about this? I care. I really, truly care. And like, I really have been there. I'm there now. Like I I do the work. I'm going through the same kind of stuff a lot of times with my clients. Like I've been to a lot of different places that they've been. I can empathize with a lot of the situations going on. And I know that good things are made with pressure. And I know kind of from living it and working with clients enough at this standpoint of just exactly what kind of pressure gets the best results for the most part, right? There's still challenges. But I think that I have some knowledge about, I know, what is that saying? I know a little bit about a few things, but I care a fuck ton about my clients. And so that's, I guess, why people should care. I don't know.
I love it. Tough act to follow. Sarah, Meredith, who's next?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go, I guess. So I'm Sarah Bishop. I think all three of us will kind of be like, this is a hard one, and we probably have similar answers, but I'm kind of with Sonia. Like I care. I get it. I have the educational background. I've been to school, have my master's in exercise science. And, I can guide you from, the scientific standpoint, but then I also get the mental side of it, my own, background and my own kind of story. And I know you're capable of doing more. And I know that feeling of getting out of your own way and taking up space and kind of getting out of that less, smaller kind of mentality that a lot of women fall into with their fitness journey. So I guess that's my answer.
Love it.
Yeah. So I'm going to follow up the same as my other two girls, because hence why we have a podcast together. I think it's hard to answer. Why should someone care what we say or what I say? My first inclination, like, honestly, is, I guess you shouldn't. Like, you should go off of how you feel and what resonates to you. And if what we're saying and what we have experienced resonates with you, well, then awesome. If it doesn't, then I'd hope, and I think the same for Sarah and Sonia, there is some great coaches out there. And I'd hope that everybody finds that person that it comes down to you. Like, it needs to be your why. And if one of the three of us says something, has experienced something, because let's be real, all three of us have lived some shit. And that's why we are coaches, because we have been, quote, in the trenches of life. Like, this, everyone has, at some point. And not that we have come out and we are in this epiphany, top of the mountain journey, because that's why we are coaches, is to keep learning. But I think it comes down to the person, like something that we have said, whether it's me, Sarah, Sonia, or, yourself. Like, I hope that resonates with somebody, like, hey, you know what, that's how I feel, or that's how I felt. I don't, short of say, oh, we have this certification, that, you know what, anybody can get a certification. Like, anybody can go take a class, maybe pass a test, because I'll say, like, I fucking hate tests, but, anyone can go take, a certification, pass a test, and slap some initials behind their last name. Most anybody, like, there's degrees of this, right? But that doesn't mean just because you're certified, there's that statement, doesn't mean you're qualified. And I think coming down to the qualification comes down to experience, empathy, being client-centered. And I think that's something we all encompass.
I love it. That's the whole reason why I asked this question, is because when I first started my show, I always went the kind of who are you route. And while that's great, right? Everyone has this tendency to just like spit out their resume, and that's awesome. But if you take any other podcast conversation I've had and like really get into it a little bit further, like I'm going to use Sonia since she's sitting here right now and she has a really impactful story, that anything she could list off in terms of the qualification she has, yes, they make her an excellent coach in terms of me going to her and being like, hey, I don't understand something. Can you explain this to me? But when she comes at it from the direction of like what her experience has actually been, because I think that's where the why do you care comes into play, or why should we care comes into play. There's a lot more to that. And it's a lot more of that, what you just said, Meredith, you nailed it in saying like somebody listening to a conversation and being able to relate. right? Being able to be like, yes, I've experienced that too. And I think it's really in the health, wellness, fitness space in particular, there is now this amazing platform through podcasting and through social media, if you want to look at it that way, to be able to peel back that onion and show more of that raw, real authenticity of like, I didn't just wake up and have the body that you see now, in both, you know, positive and negative directions, right? Like there's a journey and there's a story to how we got there. And that's really why I don't give you any context or like pre-prep for that question, because I want to hear like exactly the first thing that pops into your mind. So put you guys on the spot a little bit on purpose there. But before we dig into it a little more, I did prep you for this question. I want to know, just to kind of break the ice, I'm a big coffee lover. Sonia and I have had to work together on pulling back on my caffeine consumption. It's much better than it was a year ago. But I want to know what you guys, a lot better. It's down to only a cup of coffee a day.
It's so little, it's not in check-ins anymore.
Yes, exactly. Like it's not even something I have to point out to you because it's not of a concern where it was like, I got coffee. I went to a coffee shop 3 times today. Like, I think we need to talk about this. Yeah. But I really love it for the taste. But anyways, that said, I want to know what you guys like to sip on when you're drinking your coffee in the morning. Should we go in reverse order? Let's have Meredith go first this time.
Yeah, mine's gonna be really, really short.
Perfect.
I don't drink coffee anymore.
Okay, tell us why.
Because I stopped having it when I could stop having it the way I wanted, which is pretty much a cup of creamer with a sploosh of coffee in it. I didn't drink coffee by the cup. I drank it by the pot. I'd always make a 12-cup pot and I'd have that in the morning and then I'd have that in the night. And then I wasn't able to have it where I wanted it anymore. And I tried to go straight up and just wasn't the same. And just kind of went out of my life.
I totally get that. I respect that too. Like, I think you bring up a really great point in saying like, when it wasn't going to fit into your routine the way you wanted it to, like, was it really worth it anymore? Right? Like assessing whether that's really something you're going to enjoy, then why have it? Yeah.
I think I go through phases. Like, I think the last time I had coffee was probably when I visited my sister. And I think that it was, I don't even know, some decaf something with like a splash of like almond milk or something in it. I don't even remember. It's been so long.
Sarah, what about you?
Well, I kind of have an opposite answer.
Okay, let's hear it.
I drink my coffee black. I've been drinking it that way since forever. If I'm going to Starbucks, it's usually an Americano. If I'm being good, it's a half calf Americano. But I have also been better at limiting my caffeine. And now I just do like 2 cups of regular coffee in the morning, like normal person cups, like not like the 16 ounce 2 of those. And then if I really want to have more in the afternoon, I have decaf, and I've found 2 brands of decaf that I can trick myself into thinking taste like the real deal. And I can't pronounce it, but if you guys are in the US, it's like a yellow bag, Gavalia, it starts with a G.
I don't even think I know that.
Anyway, it's
look it
good.
up.
And then Wicked Joe's is the other one, and you get that on Amazon. And it tastes like the real deal.
Nice. All right, Sonia, last time you said white coffee, and we gave the listener an education on what is white coffee. Yeah. Do you want to say that, or you want to give us another
about
one?
This
I'm interested. I can get down.
Yeah. So white coffee is less acidic. When I drink coffee, I burp immediately after. I'm like, my body is like, I don't really know. My stomach can kind of get weird with it sometimes. I don't burp right after, but it's like, I get kind of like burpy after that. Right. So it's like, I got
something's going on.
But my body's like, I'm not really a huge fan of it. However, I love the taste, but I've swapped out white coffee, which is it's like an unroasted bean. It's a green bean with less acidity, which doesn't ever bother me. And higher caffeine. So this is white coffee, and it's like nutty in flavor, but it looks like when they first gave it to me, it was like, I feel like I got jacked. It was like clear-ish. I was like, this is like, are you sure? But it does the trick. But lately I found a little coffee shop right here by my house, and it's in walking distance, and they do the best almond milk latte. So I get a half calf almond milk latte, but like the way they froth it, they're like, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. The foam is there's so much foam that afterwards I can eat it with a spoon. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. And so I'm like a 4 Splenda cinnamon almond milk latte. And I really don't go that often. I'll probably go like once a week. And it's a super cute shop, and I'll just sit and have my little cough and wait for my little movement. And then I just get on my life.
You mean going to the bathroom?
Yeah. Just wait for God's glory to run through me.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for sharing all of that. There's a lot to even be unpacked in our comments about coffee too, right? For anybody who has not listened to the show before, or might just kind of be jumping in for the first time, and I haven't talked about this in a lot of detail on other episodes without having other coaches on. But the reason why we're saying, like, when we choose to be good, or we couldn't have something, and Sonia hinting at the fact that she notices a reaction to her drinking coffee, it brings up a point about how there's no one size fits all for everybody. And, Sonia, you even said this to me the last time I had you on the show, like, coffee is one of the most researched things in the world of health and fitness, right? And there is somebody out there who can tell you it's amazing. There's somebody out there who's going to tell you that it's terrible for you. But I think what it comes down to is the fact that you have to learn how to listen to your body. And the three of you guys have actually lived that, to tie it back to everything we've said so far in the last few minutes of being really in tune of what does and doesn't work for you. And I want to use that as a jumping off point to keep with our theme of Women's History Month and highlighting amazing females like we do so often on this show. As 4 nutrition coaches sitting here together, I really want to talk about, and I personally work mostly with women. I know Sonia works with a lot of females too. I can't speak for you. And, for Sarah and Meredith, but obviously would love to get a little more color from you guys. But I just find that with my female clients, we're the biggest culprits of coming up with all the things that get in the way of us reaching our goals, or all the things that we maybe like don't want to take as reality. Like the person who really loves to drink coffee, even if they're having some bad side effects with it, right? They'll still keep drinking it. Or like the classic story of a client who's like, I have all these digestion problems, but I eat really clean. And then when you dig into what they're eating, their order from Starbucks is like loaded with all these artificial sweeteners, sugars, all these things that you're like, hello, if we maybe just adjusted this one thing, we'd see a lot of different changes, right? And we can sit here and like swap all those stories. But to open this up, I want to get an understanding from you guys. Like if you had to pick the top 1 thing, 2 thing, 3 things that you see are themes of challenges that your clients face on a day-to-day basis, what the heck are they?
Their own mindset for me is going to be top.
Yeah.
That's it.
Self-limiting beliefs. I mean, it's going to, for me, like, I feel like anything I say, it's going to come back to like their brain and how the story, like Sonia, like I think you always say something that's always like perfect. Like, the stories that you tell yourself.
Story I'm telling myself. Yeah. It's like
comparisons, like,
and this whole thing of like, let me give you an example. Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Let's hear it.
I'm doing taxes, which suck. Just suck. Like they just suck. Every year I think then now, and I did some things. I changed things. Anyways, I'm just doing taxes and I'm just like, damn it. Like, what did I do? However, I track everything and I spent about $6,500 to $7,000 last year on supplements. Track thing.
Yeah.
Easily. And that's just like what was tracked, right? That's not like Amazon, traveling, grabbing mag citrate and some omegas while like, that's just like what was tracked, right? So for me, I don't ever think about it when I spend $200 at New FYX and I buy my stuff, or I go on Wellevate and I spend $100. Like it never crosses my mind that this is an expense. But when someone tells me they pay $100 for their lashes every 2 weeks, I'm like, I would just never spend money. I just don't. But I spend money on my nails and I'm like, for sure, dude, it's nothing because I want it, right? So it's what we want, we'll see, right? And so it's the same exact thing with clients. What we want, we'll make time for, right? So like, I'm always making time for like my Instagram posts and like checking in with emails, but I don't make time for my check-in. My check-in is too hard, you know? And recently, like I had a client, this is just an example. I had a client who is like, can't make check-ins happen. And it was even like, well, what if we make check-ins? Like I'll just pre-write the check-ins and then I'll just send them on this day. And I'm like, well, then the data is not for the whole week.
The most current, right.
For the week before, which is fine. But then it's hard to coach if I don't know the play. Like, I don't know what play you just ran. I can't tell you anything. However, recently there's been a conversation where we're working on a collaboration and I get emails all the time and rapid message fires back. So it's kind of like, and it's not any like this person is doing something wrong. Just it's a mindset, right? And we have to change our mindset or nothing will ever work. Ever. We won't get to there's always going to be an excuse. Always.
Yeah. I mean, I'll put myself right in that category, right? Like you and I had talked about this maybe like a month and a half ago. I was ready to start a diet, but I knew I needed to check in with you more regularly for the diet to be successful. And I had this idea in my head that if I could not do the check-in for you, like filling out the spreadsheet, answering every single one of your questions, that I just couldn't do it at all. Which is ridiculous because now literally every Wednesday, I just did it an hour ago, I just send Sonia screenshots of my summary for the week in MyFitnessPal and send her a summary for the week of where my weight's going and give her little updates. Like today I started my period. So I told her like, and that was it. And I've been doing great.
And I will say like just as a precaution, like, it's because she's a coach. We've worked together for like almost a year and a half through a hefty reverse and building phase.
Yes.
So we can
there was a lot more back and forth before.
She has the foundation to do that. And it's a lot more hands off when we have clients that are it's like, what can you do? Meredith says this is great. What can you do this week? Give me what you can do. And then let me hold you accountable to that. But when you still can't do what you set up, and that's not self-discipline. There's no self-love there.
Totally. Sarah, you were going to jump in with something.
Yeah, I think, and we talk about this a lot amongst the three of us, but it's that coming at things from a place of scarcity versus that place of abundance. That's what I see, with a lot of people like, oh man, I can't, like we were talking about like with the coffee, like, oh, I can't have the coffee, I can't have the caffeine. Well, do you want to have better digestion? Like, do you want to clear like your chronic fatigue? What is like, I mean, back to what do you really want? But I think that mindset switch of coming at it from a place of abundance is a really powerful shift. And so getting away from the I can'ts to the I get to's, that's something that once it clicks for a client, it's like, okay, now we're on our way. But sometimes it takes I've had people, it takes them 5 months, for it to click.
Yeah. I think another example, I have a client and this just happened. I sent her a list of 50 different types of vegetables that she could pick from, no green beans and no broccoli, because that literally was all that she was eating. And she couldn't find anything. And I was like, okay, so that's something we need to work out. Out of a list of 50 type of vegetables, you are only willing to eat like the 2 or 3 that are not on this list. This is a mindset thing. Like this is a type where we can find out, hey, let's cook it differently. Let's prepare it differently. Let's use a different spice. This is the moment of when you're asking, I want to be different. I want to achieve X and Y, Z goal. Well, then we have to start acting different, because clearly what we were doing before, I made a post on this, like what you're familiar with doesn't necessarily mean it's going to serve you. And that means getting uncomfortable and walking face first into fear. It's like literally you see the door that says, don't enter, gonna be a hard road, ups and downs. You're going to get many paper cuts, fall on your ass, and you have to open the door. And you have to walk through, and you need to go through that stress so you can build resilience and then maybe change your habits and change your mindset. And 9 times out of 10, you walk through that thing and you're like, this wasn't so bad. And I found out, I really like doing this instead. It's like me giving up coffee. The world would have ended At one point, if I could not have gotten up, smelled my, flavored coffee, because that was my jam brewing, and like have my sugar-free creamer so I could like pound down half of that, like the world would have ended. But like now I'm like, oh my God, like I can't remember the last time I had it. Like clearly the world hasn't ended.
Yeah. And you feel great, right?
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. But I think the challenge then is in the fact of like having the misunderstanding that like there's so much uncertainty, right? You don't know what like that other side is going to be like. And even if somebody sits there, I talked about this on my podcast last week because I was talking about my own journey in the last 2 years. And for as much as somebody could tell me, hey, everything's going to be okay, like with my career, my relationships, and then my fitness, it felt like all three of these things completely changed in like such monumental ways all at the same time. So anytime someone told me, hey, you're going to be okay, I thought it was the shittiest advice ever, right? I just didn't want to hear it. And what I realized in talking through the journey and talking through that entire episode, part of it was because these were all things that I was really good at before. I had them under control. And the example I gave was, I was at a point where I felt like doing 5 push-ups was so hard. And now I think about like, at the time I was thinking about how I could do like a bunch of burpees and all these other things like thrown into that push-up, that the one push-up by itself was nothing. But the minute it got hard, I didn't want to do it. And that was a lot of the reason why, even in trying to go the opposite direction of doing a reverse diet and working with Sonia, it was hard because it was so unfamiliar. It was everything I thought I shouldn't do, right? And so I didn't want to do it. Even if she sat there and told me, like, trust me, there's a reason behind this. And I had all the information because I am a coach and I could go coach someone through the same exact thing. It was just that uncertainty. So I think that's another piece of it too, right? It's just the unknown. And yes, that can be where a coach comes in. But at the same time, I would push this back to you guys to say, if that is a part of it, then what is it that still gets our clients stuck, right? Like, what is it that makes them still feel stuck? Because for as much as I leaned into all the advice I was getting, there were still periods where I'm like, I don't believe what you're saying, or I didn't see the results as quickly as I wanted to. So I really didn't want to believe what you were saying.
I guess it's maybe situation dependent a little bit, but I think you have to unpack the fear. Like, what are you truly afraid of? I mean, maybe like for like the push-up example, like, is it that you're afraid of like failing? Like you're afraid of like being weak or being perceived as weak? Like, yeah, that's the inner fear. I mean, I have a client where, last week was the goal was to hit, a certain amount of carbs. I wanted her to increase her intake. And, I was like, I just want you to give me 1 day of that. And she couldn't do it, for the week. And she's like, I spent so much time thinking about it, but at the end of the day, I couldn't do it. And I was like, okay, well, for this week, I have the same goal for you, but I also want you to unpack what was on the other side of that fear. Like, is it the fear of, the carbs itself? Is it the fear of seeing that scale go up? Like, do you ultimately not want to gain the weight? Whatever it is, like, I need you to kind of unpack that and ask yourself some of those hard questions.
Yeah. I say the same thing to my clients. I ask them specifically. I actually say, what specifically are you struggling with? Because it throws it back to them. That's what my coaches ask me. Like, and I ask myself, like, why, what am I specifically struggling with? And sometimes when you are honest with that and you say what you're specifically struggling with, that right there is a lot of self-realization.
I think another thing too is like both of the girls say, like, it's the fear of not knowing or the fear of previous experiences. I think some things work really well once. I feel like anyone can get skinny once. You know what I mean? Yeah. But can you do it twice or 3 times or 4 times or continuously do it? Or how about this? When you're 40, what does that look like when you've been doing that only your whole life? And what the realistic outcome of trusting yourself looks like. I know kind of like a way that was broken down for me when I was like in recovery from my eating disorder was, you've kind of lost the right to decide what's enough and what's not enough food. So you have to give it over to someone else, because your vision for yourself of what the right thing to do has not earned you anything other than being in the wrong place. And again, this is specific to, when I was going through an eating disorder, which was true. My thought process around food was disordered, and I had lost a decision to make sure that I was getting the nutrients I needed to survive. And I think that when you work with a coach, walking into it with a mindset and reminding yourself, although not always easy, that the moment you let go and just we've got you. We are listening. There's men coaches that are amazing. We all work with men actually, as our coaches, and they're just as understanding, but giving it over fully to the process is where the biggest changes are made. And reminding yourself that the reason you're going for a coach most likely is not just the scale. There are behavior issues around food, maybe binge eating or severe restricting. You are in a stuck place and you can't make changes on your own. You've yo-yo diet, you're in hormonal dysfunction, you have painful periods, you have gut dysfunction. Something is going on. That's even more proof that you've kind of lost your decision-making around your food, nutrition, timing, and training is not gotten you where you want to be. And if you let us help you and fully lean into the process, while difficult, it doesn't mean you have to go okay, it doesn't bother me. You can say, it's hard, but I'm doing it. It's hard, but I'm doing it. You will see the best results, not in your time, in your body's time, but they will come.
Yeah, I think the last thing you just hit on there too talks about the challenges that we all face with instant gratification, right? There's so many things we can get so fast. So we want everything else to operate that way. And then I would even blend that in with comparison too, because that's when I find that the instant gratification comes up in conversations with my clients when they're comparing themselves to someone who did, some other really bullshit, unhealthy diet that was fast. But then they're like, well, so-and-so did this and she looks awesome. And I find that my gut reaction of what I want to usually say to that is, well, let's check in on that friend of yours that had those really awesome results in 6 months. And chances are they still not may look that way. But sometimes that doesn't always give my clients the sigh of relief or the reassurance that they really need. So I'm sure you guys have those conversations with people too. And I'd be curious to know what your feedback would be for somebody like that.
Yeah. I'm don't be an Amazon Prime athlete. We're not, we're better than that. I think too, looking back at someone's history, hey, we were doing XYZ for 6 years, a year, 2 years, 12 years, decades, whatever it might be. It's going to take some time to do some repatterning here and make some new habits that will lead to the changes that you want, but it's not going to happen in 12 weeks. You're going to get a transformation of some type in 12 weeks, but it's not going to be maybe the Instagram transformation you were envisioning.
I think that if we started looking at the body in more of the timeline of mental health, people would have more realistic goals. So for example, if you are somebody who suffers with severe depression and anxiety, going to counseling every other week for a month is not going to change that. You are going to literally need to be working through your shit, working with someone, working each day on failing forward, going forward, not handling things well, going back. What did I do well? What did I need to work on? Creating new habits, creating new lifestyles, surrounding yourself with new people. You would never expect that to be if someone was 30-day transformation, never deal with depression again, we'd be like, that sounds like a bunch of fucking,
that's delusional.
Call it what it fucking
That's
was.
awesome.
You'd be like, this is bullshit. However, we're hormonal dysfunction, estrogen dominance, severe weight loss resistance, a 30-day metabolic resistance course, and you're good. And it's fuck. Here's the hardest things. Social media picks up on a certain thing, and it's I think it's nobody wants to see that this person doesn't look better. They look worse, but their life is a ton better. Their body comp doesn't look as good as when we started, and they're up 10 pounds. But guess what? They have a sex drive. They have their period. People don't want to see that. that's not what sells. That's not what's sexy, but that's more realistic than this reverse diet, weight loss, hormones are fine advertising that we fall into because it works and it's a business still, it's like, it's hard.
I know the biggest, like something that we are like big on, we're like our own squad, is, these like, I don't want to even say short term, but like, these 8-10 week, and I will say the three of us have issues even sometimes like posting about like transformations our clients make because we don't want to fall into that or somebody get the wrong.
I rarely do. If I do, it's usually not a picture of their body. It's usually like a text from them about something that like is going really well for them. It doesn't even mention the scale or, an in body or whatever it was.
Yeah. For us though, like, I think it comes down to like, someone can get, whatever kind of fix for 8 to 10 weeks, but have we given them the tools to maintain that for the lifetime? It's what it comes down to is, awesome. The scale went down because, whatever, you're on a juice cleanse or you're drinking a lot and, it's just food volume and waste, or yes, you feel better because now all of a sudden you're eating these one ingredient foods, but are you sustaining that? Have you navigated Christmas? Have you navigated going on the boat with the girlfriends and, gone through those periods of, oh, fuck, I did overeat and, I had too many drinks. Hey, coach, what happened? Like, great. Let's learn from that. Let's keep going. That is lifestyle. It's not about like this 8 or 10. And that's what's going to carry you over the long term. And here again, what have you done for the last 20 years? Well, we aren't going to erase the mindsets, the habits. And then again, all the people that surround you or you have surrounded yourself with, like that's living life. Like that is coaching coaching people through the life that they're living and then getting them to see, hey, listen, you know what? You want to get to Z. Well, you know what? We need to go through A, B, and C first. And you may realize some things on the way. What if you say, hey, listen, that's not for me. Well, that's great. Let's just navigate the plan. Let's zig and zag. And nothing is straight linear. Like that's not life in anything.
I did a post like a while ago, but like, it was something to the extent of like the results that you want from like this person, like I'll have people, even my clients, and I'll post something like, I know, but that was 3 months and I don't look different. That client doesn't miss check-ins, doesn't miss their macros, doesn't miss their cardio, trains with intensity, doesn't have excuses, isn't drinking, like not drinking, not like kind of drinking. And I'm not saying you have to completely not drink to lose weight, but if you're drinking 3 days on, 2 days off, even if it fits into your macros, you cannot expect, those are unrealistic expectations. Oh my God, you have such a cute kitty back there. Squirrel. But those are unrealistic expectations. And if you want the results that this person is doing, then you also have to do the exact work that person's doing.
And change. And we change people. What worked for you when you were fucking like 5 years ago, I get that X, Y, and Z worked for you. Congratulations. You have evolved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Coach, it's hard.
Well,
good.
And we talk about making this a lifestyle. I think as like as coaches, we talk about that on Instagram, like, oh, you got to make it a lifestyle. So people come to us and they're like, oh, I'm ready for this lifestyle thing. And it's like, no, hun, you got to overhaul your current lifestyle
which
and
takes
create
time.
a new one.
Like this 80-20.
Yeah. It's not you come to me with your lifestyle and it's nothing changes and we get some result.
I feel like I'm going to dive into this 80-20 because it just makes me want to punch somebody in the tit sometimes because people tell me I want more of an 80-20 lifestyle. And here's what that means. You want to be like somebody who's advertising 80-20 and your 80-20 might look different because my 80-20, if I'm not tracking, I have so much food education from tracking for so long and really knowing nutrient timing that my 20 doesn't look like my boyfriend's 20 or like when I go out to the bar, like my friends all like, they're not following that. Like their 20 looks different than my 20. So my 20 is like fries with a burger and just like a lettuce wrap. and their 20 is like triple stacked burger and 4 beers. So it's like, it's just, what does your 20 look like? And then with the same thing is that 80-20 isn't really what works to lose weight. It's a great way to maintain weight, to live in a balanced lifestyle when you get to your results, but you can't lose weight doing 80-20. That's unrealistic. Again, because 80-20 isn't measurable.
Yeah, because it's so relative, right? I think that's your point. It's like, it's not a like everybody in saying everybody's 80-20 looks different. It's like, well, we have to define what that really looks like for you. Yeah. And I also think that brings up the point of a lot of people not doing the work of also setting like what some of their non-negotiables are and being really honest about them. Like this is something that's come up for me a lot recently as I take on new clients, because I find that if we don't have that conversation right away, the areas that they get stuck is because they've convinced themselves that they have to totally get rid of something in order to see results, right? And that's also really relative. In the examples we described, again, to just go back our conversation around coffee, there were reasons why it made the most sense for Meredith to get rid of something, why it made the most sense for Sarah to cut back and utilize decaf more often, right? But then there's other people who maybe they can find the black coffee and be okay with that. Like for you, it just didn't work, right, Meredith? But I think like for some reason, and maybe this goes back to the all or nothing mindset, but I find that if I have a client who also has had some fear around, let's say, carbohydrates, right? Like they're so convinced that the answer to hitting certain fitness goals is like they got to give up bread. And then we don't have that conversation until I start to notice that like they come back to me and I ask them about like challenges for the week, and they'll make comments about, oh, I had like a bunch of sandwiches, or I had, just something like that's usually something that I notice a theme with. And they're convinced if the scale didn't move that was why, or if they're not seeing results, that was why. But then I look at a couple other things and it's like, well, they had multiple drinks that week and their sleep was so bad. Like they had multiple nights where their sleep was complete shit. But no, they're totally convinced that it had to be because of the bread. And I think something that we can do better right out of the gate and just trying to educate people is get them to understand like, hey, it's okay if there's certain things you really want to keep in your life, but let's have a conversation about what that does to your timeline.
Yeah. No, I like that. I mean, that comes up with a lot of clients for me too. It's like, and it's okay. Like you said, like example could be like, a mom with, like family, like if Sunday night is family pizza night and you want to participate, I am all for it. Like, let's have a slice of pizza. Maybe you make a side salad too. That way you get at least, some greens. Like maybe some days we don't track, dinner is completely untracked.
Yeah, that's a big one with moms.
Yeah. And that's cool. Like I think clients feel guilty sometimes, like with wanting that flexibility. It's like, no, that's okay. But then like you said, as long as you're cool with pushing out this timeline or having XYZ, result.
Yeah. I think that's something I've actually worked with most recently, and I know the other girls have too, is when I give a client an untracked meal and they don't take it.
Didn't you just do a post about this, Meredith? I feel like
probably.
I feel like I saw this. Yeah.
But that's a big one to me, is seeing that I don't see it, because I do ask my clients, let me know, when you took your untracked meal. And I was like, document it, because we can learn, like we can improve our untracked meals. For some people, it starts off as a YOLO and then we can evolve, right? Again, it's always an opportunity. But I see that often is where a client will have a goal and it becomes like this, again, 0 or 100. And then that's not sustainable, right? We can't be 0 or 100. That's not sustainable over a life. And when they don't take their untracked meal, and we get into that, why are you not having that untracked meal? And I'm like, this in itself, this is something we have to address, especially if body composition and sustainability, is our goals, then we have to address the relationship that we're having around food, because that will get us into quite the pickle, later on.
Yeah. I think that, if people were more willing to fail as a sign of progressing forward, just in general, like as people, we would be further along. It's like, good, it didn't work out. Jocko Willink did a YouTube on this, or like there's like a clip and you can look it up, and it's Jocko Willink, good. You know, he just says like, didn't get the job, good. Got more time to get better. Didn't get the promotion you wanted, good. You didn't need it. Fine. Like it didn't work. You had a bad week, cool, awesome. You didn't lose weight, good. More time to put focus on more commitment. And I can't tell you how many times like a person is stalled, and as a coach, I'm like, I just don't quite get it. And I have to have like a call and jump on calls. And we've been on calls, Krysta, like where it's like, let's talk. And normally they're more fired up after the call. And, you know, you give them the good, like coach talk of like, here's how we're going to break it down. And we're back in it. And the next week, same macros, same cardio. Coach, I was so much more consistent this week. Scales down 1.5 pounds. Cool. All we needed to change was the consistency, right? Because it's a little nibble here, it's a little thing there, it's not tracking this, it's not really hitting that, and everything looks fine, right? But reality check, if just because you didn't track it doesn't mean you didn't eat it. And that's
I always say to my clients, if you bite it, you write it. That's my
thing. Okay, well, how do I log it? Donut, quarter of a donut. Cool. There you go. Something is better than nothing.
Right. That's another one we could talk about too. Like the fear and anxiety around trying to have like meals out, right? And if you're into food tracking, like I always tell people, I'm like, I would so much rather you put something, even if it turns out to be wildly incorrect. At least it's something. Like,
I'm scared to cook a recipe because I don't know what's in it, or I don't want to go out. Guess what? Quest bars. Just because you scan those calories don't match those macros. That's with a lot of food. The calories don't match the macros. The calories are just a number. And they really only have to be about 20% of like where they actually are, give or take, which means it's a less. So if you're eating 4 things that you just scan that are 20% less or 20% more calories than you scanned for the day, and you're just going off calories, that's where people are like, these 100-calorie snacks are 120, 130 calories. And so you don't even know what's in, just because the label says it. You see these lawsuits like with Lenny and Larry, and it's like, just because MyFitnessPal says it doesn't mean it's true. So just do the best that you can based on the knowledge that you have and see where that goes.
Yeah.
100%.
You see that one both ways. Like if I go out to eat, I have to get the burger and the fries and the beer or whatever it is, or I can't go out to eat at all. So I guess it depends on, the client, obviously, here, but I think just kind of like reeling back and being like, whoa, like, why is your mind spiraling like that? Like, I think planning ahead, like just in general, like that's something people are so resistant to, like planning ahead in MyFitnessPal or whatever tracking app. It's like, no, like just, while you're watching Netflix the night before, like do some pre-planning.
Yeah. I always encourage people. It's like I know you're on your phone, and I know you're on your phone until you go to sleep, right? So last thing you do before you go to bed, because I'll even show them, like, me personally right now, having tracked my food on and off for probably like 6-7 years, I can get away with tracking as I go throughout the day, but being in a calorie deficit right now, I can't. Because I find that I am miserable by a certain point of the day because I didn't really think strategically about like, okay, these are the macros that I'm working with right now, and I have a really long work day. What should I be doing to optimize my energy levels, right? So then I have to, the way that I work around that, I plan. Like I actually sit down and think about it the night before, because I'm going to have to think about it at some point. And I would like love to do like a little like poll on this with my clients, but if I really looked at the speed of their success, I would argue that the person who is really on board with planning in advance within the first month of working with me could probably see results twice as fast as someone who's like very resistant to that.
For sure.
I have clients 6 months in who still can't hit their macros.
Same.
And I'm like, when can we diet? And it's like, you're still eating 1,200 calories some days, and then there's 2 days with no tracking. So we can't even get to the starting line.
Yeah. And I know you can, because I have people that start with me week 1, and macros is a totally different new concept, and they're hitting it, almost to the gram.
100%.
So
yeah.
I think, and two, like people are like, oh, I don't want to have to focus on my food. It's like, well, if you pre-plan, you'll actually focus on food a lot less.
Yeah.
Great.
It comes down to that same statement. It's like the Sonia statement always, whatever you tell yourself, like whatever the story is, you tell yourself. There's always going to be an excuse. Like literally you can come up with any excuse. Why not? Oh, I don't want to be on my phone. Oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, no. But yet you have these goals, or yet you have this. Like the people that come up with, if you're willing to have an open discussion, trust me, your coach, we can zigzag better than the best. But if you're always going to meet that with, again, that, I'm not going to say negative, but abundant mindset, it's always going to come back to your mind. Like whatever you tell yourself, you can or can't do.
I can't tell you how many people are like, I don't want to be too hyper focused on like this. I don't want to be too obsessive. And then they co-sign their own excuses. I know I didn't do the plan, but at least I didn't do this. And then it's like, okay, well, and then it's like, well, then we need to focus on this. Okay, but I don't want to be too obsessive. Okay, well, let's talk about dating. You want to find some good dick and the perfect man, but you're super focused on that. You're willing to go out to meet people. You're willing to swipe and do profiles and filters and all this stuff. You're focused on that. You went to school, you focused on your career. You wanted to make a lot of money. You focused on schoolwork. It's like, you need to focus on things intensely or with intent for a period of time to get the results that you want. Nothing like there are people that are just genetically gifted. Mm-hmm. You may not be one of them if you're coming to us because you're stuck because you're eating 1,000 calories and you can't lose weight.
Well, let's throw that one out there, right? Like I had somebody early in just my experience of tracking macros in a company that I worked with, something that he brings up time and again is like someone would be very quick to put a budget together, right? If they were trying to buy a house, they'd be really quick to put that budget together to figure out where their expenses were and what they needed to do to save in order to be able to buy that house. And we as a society accept that, right? Like we're like, yeah, of course, that sounds like a really great idea. Like you should totally sign on to doing that. But when it comes to what we can essentially make the analogy of food tracking being like a food budget, there's all these negatives as to why it's not a good idea, because it's obsessive, because it's this, because it's that. Why do you guys think that is?
I think that the people who are stating those have come from times of restricting or eating or disordered eating behavior and have found that to be a problem in their life letting go. And I've shared about this on podcasts and even with you, Krysta. It was really hard for me to not track for a very long time. It became obsessive. You have to be aware of your own behaviors. But I think that like I'm an ex-drug addict. I've dealt with obsessive behavior my whole life in and out of treatment centers for eating disorders and drug addictions. So I'm just more prone to that. I have to mentally see it as a tool. And it's like, again, it's like, this is not saying like, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just saying it's like, it's really how we're choosing to see it. But you need to be aware when it's starting to become a problem. And you need to talk to your coach about it, because I have clients who have gotten there. It's not that tracking has made them. Some of them have already they never missed macros the day they got them. They do not miss it. They don't go out to eat if they cannot track it. Everything has to line up. They already lean on that side of things in general, where that just kind of like is one more thing where it's like, let's try working on trusting ourselves a little bit more. It's the fear of trusting yourself in those situations where I think sets them back from kind of like being able to breathe about them. But they typically are that type that is already there, Yeah.
No, you nailed that. I mean, it's not the thing itself. It's, how you're relating to it or how you're acting out. So I think, I mean, I've been there, I've been obsessed about it, and you just have to know your own triggers and be really self-aware with whatever those are.
Yeah. And if you know what, like for my clients, when we realize that there is a trigger, or I think more so when they realize, because as a coach, we typically see it and we kind of like, hey, I think we should address this. And when the client is finally ready to relinquish and say they realize that there is a problem, guess what? We might need to shift those goals then. And you know what? That is okay, because if we can start conquering that and start conquering mindset, everything else is going to come. It's not that you're losing. It doesn't mean that you're failing. We're still winning because we're still conquering battles. We're still moving forward. The progression has just changed a little. And that's, again, with training or anything else, it's just an iteration.
Totally. An iteration is such a great word for it too, because I even find with people, just to kind of rein the back in a little bit, when they tell me, oh, it's been a couple weeks and I'm not necessarily seeing results, I put it back on them to ask, have you done anything in the past week or 2 weeks that isn't reflective of you wanting to get closer to your goals? And I just ask them that question. I say, if you're sitting here like so frustrated, what can you tell me that you think you could have done differently? And open up the conversation that way. Because sometimes if they say, well, I'm not really sure, and then we kind of walk through like how progress isn't linear in that whole conversation, I try to have them shift their mindset to understanding, well, I am making changes because I happen to be the person that, like, to think of something a little more generalized, right now I'm working with somebody who's a high school athlete, and she's never looked at calories, anything in her life, but she's a very amazing athlete, and she has opportunities that are going to open up for her that if she really thinks about her performance, she will be able to play at an even higher level than she is currently. But when I'm trying to help her navigate her food, the first thing she said to me as like 17-year-old girl, she's already thinking about like her body image, and she's really sensitive to that at that time. So something I'm really trying to explain to her is like, hey, you want to go have pizza with your basketball team? Totally cool. Let's just make sure you hit your protein goal for the day. So if you're going to have the pizza, can we also have some chicken around? Like, and just make sure if you eat it at the same time you have the pizza, awesome. If it's for lunch instead of dinner, cool too. And really asking them, like, can you sit here and tell me that there's nothing that you did that isn't helping you inch along in the direction that you want to go? And most of the time they can never come up with anything because they've at least made one change.
Right.
Super good.
But, I think kind of underlying everything we're talking about, there is the assumption of there's a huge benefit of working with a coach, right? We all have mentioned that we have coaches. So if somebody's sitting listening to this and maybe they don't know where to start, and maybe they don't have a coach, maybe for whatever reason, they're going to give us the excuse that that's not accessible. And Sonia hit it earlier when she said it's all about what you value and what you'll spend your money on, right? But let's say that that's not in the cards for them for whatever reason. What advice would you give someone to kind of help them get started in reprioritizing their health and wellness?
I'll start because this is kind of what helped me before I, had my first coach, is look at it as an experiment. Just try it, like, just for it. Like, it doesn't, this is, kind of a saying, for my own recovery is like just for today. Right. And you don't have to do it every day this week, but give me at least, give yourself at least two days, 3 days, of doing it. Do it just for today. And see how you feel. Like, if it's scary, like, you can always go back to doing what you're doing. Like, that's in your back pocket and you can totally go back to that. But like, if you can give it just one day, you might be able to give it 2 and then 3, etc. And you may not want to go back to what you were doing before.
Yeah. I think that working that, like, how do I build on that instead of like another things? I think that's a great thing, is then also looking for all the things that you can have and not look for the restrictions, but look for the abundance. So like, I can have a lot of fruits and vegetables. I can have good, healthy, lean proteins that are good sources. I can have healthy choices in fat. Instead of looking at, I can't have this, I can't have that, I can't have that. I get to fuel my body. I get to have nutrients. I get to feel better. I get to move towards a better life. Like, I get to live longer. And living in an abundance mindset around any change that you're making versus the restrictive mindset, which Meredith had mentioned below with her client, of all the things that I cannot have in this moment.
And I piggyback off of those by saying, keep it simple. It's like going to the example of someone who's going to go to the gym for the first time and like, I'm going to start a gym routine. And they're like, I'm going to go every single day at 4 a.m. Really? Do you know what it's like getting up at 3:30? Because I do. That's deep. That's some deep shit. And I have a lot of clients, it's like, again, that 0 or 100. So keep it simple. What's one habit that you can do, like Sarah said, all day? Is that going to be, I'm going to increase my water, not increase it from 20 ounces a day to 140.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm going to increase it from, 20 ounces to 40 ounces. And I'm going to do that all day. Fuck, I did it today. I'm going to do this shit again tomorrow. Do that consistently every day. And then pick up something else that you can do consistently. You don't have to dive all in day one, hitting 140 ounces of water. I go to the gym at 4 a.m. I'm going to do 45 minutes of cardio. I'm going to eat. You don't got to do all the things every day. That likely isn't going to be sustainable.
For sure. I think that was exactly what I was getting at too. And just saying picking that one thing, right? And because it simplifies it and it helps you recognize your wins that you're having, because I think the negative self-talk can often get in the way, and you wanting to make all these changes and then battling with wanting them to happen as quickly as possible. And I think for some reason we associate speed with trying to change everything at once. There's just this idea that, well, if we change it all at once, then it's definitely going to happen faster. And I'm sure you guys could really relate to that, especially with maybe even some of your gut health clients. They do have a lot of changes to make in a lot of cases, but most of the time, those people may be so overwhelmed by everything that they're feeling or that they think they should be doing, and they've gotten so much misinformation or just conflicting information from different resources that could actually be the worst thing for them, right? And it may just be in talking with Sonia and taking on more clients who have gut health issues, she always says to me, first thing you got to ask them, do you eat fast? Because everything starts with how they chew. And so many of them overlook it. And they're like, well, is that really the only thing that I could fix? And I'm like, just try that. Come talk to me in a couple of days, just chew slower. Count how many times you chew, or let me know because they don't even know if they eat fast half the time. They're not paying attention. And I've had multiple people say to me, wow, I didn't really think that would make that big of a difference. But that's a pretty small thing.
Mm-hmm. Game changer.
Huge. And I think, that's another question too for you guys that we haven't really hit on this, because I think it's a little bit of a tangent, but something that I think is unfortunate is when it comes to somebody with digestion issues, a lot of people accept it. And I think women especially are guilty of this. They just accept that that's how they're supposed to feel. So they're not necessarily having a conversation with someone that something's not right. I just had a conversation with a client the other day because she's lived her whole life just totally bloated. And she just assumed that it was normal, or how many times she's going to the bathroom, just assumed it was normal. And I think women tend to diminish how they're feeling, and for whatever reason, because they put other people before them or what.
Yeah. I think that our idea of normal in general is subjective to our history and experiences 100%. So what's normal in a relationship, what's normal in a job, what's normal for digestion is all based on our history and what we've gone through. It doesn't necessarily mean it's what's right or what is best for. And that goes for all of those things, right? So I think digging into clients and figuring out what's going on is key to, obviously, a tool that we use as coaches. But I think one thing I've gotten better at and really started doing more of is before we go in there with any crazy protocol, even if you have these crazy issues, we have to look at what your basics are throughout your day and your basic food intake, because 50% of the people, when we just do the basics for a week or two, feel better. 50% do not. They may even feel worse. And then we go into something more severe, like a GI test or a gut protocol. So it's just kind of it's the steps of this is, again, where working with a coach is thank God I work with a coach, and thank God he keeps it simple, because I go down rabbit holes.
Yeah.
I'm we could do this, we could do that, we could do it. It's nope, let's just start here. And then if this happens, then let's do this. And if this happens, then let's do this. But let's not open a bunch of doors and that we're not even to yet,
Yeah, agree.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. No, this is all really good stuff. I think like every time I sit down with a bunch of other coaches, I always just want to give another PSA to people, like understanding that hiring a coach, we know it's hard, like to go all the way back to how we opened up this conversation, right? We're saying that the reason why you should care is because we've lived the same feelings that you're feeling. And we've been able to navigate in one way of many different options, or maybe multiple ways, multiple options of how to get through that. And that's why we're able to then give somebody some kind of guidance, some kind of structure. Like I always say to people too, like I sometimes find with a client, I'm like, all right, you have 2 different options here, maybe even 3. I'm just going to lay out to you what the 2 different options are, and then I'm going to let you pick. And sometimes they get a little nervous when you're putting it back on them. But I think getting them to have that kind of buy-in is really important. But I always find that the person who doesn't want to sit down and make the time to have the nutrition conversation, like sometimes, especially for me, having experience working with clients in group fitness, I'm always like, ugh, like this person, like if I could just talk to them about what the rest of their day looks like besides these 45 minutes, I know that I could help them so much more than in the hour that they might spend with me inside of this gym facility.
Yeah, totally.
Impact over everything else.
So before we wrap everything up, I want to ask you guys one other question, and then we're going to go into a little bit of a lightning round with like fun, light questions. Like everything from like your favorite foods to like favorite exercises. Nothing crazy. Not like the first question, Meredith. But, the 3 of you have a podcast together. And I'm going to plug it. We'll put all of that in the show notes, and we'll give everybody all the details. But since starting that, because you guys been at it for a couple months now, right? You're like almost 30 episodes in.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. What, 2-part question. 1, what was your intention of the 3 of you coming together? Because obviously you're aligned on a lot of different views and your methods of coaching. But to that end, what was your goal of sitting down on a regular basis, whether that's just among the 3 of you or including other guests that you're interviewing? Like, what did you hope to get out of that? And maybe how has that changed now that you guys are a little bit into this journey? Because I don't know if you know this about podcasting, but it's some crazy number, like more than 90% of podcasts like don't make it past episode 33. So you guys are about to defy the statistic.
Shit.
Yeah.
So I'd love to just know from podcaster to podcaster what the experience has been like.
I mean, I think a lot of it started because we found like we answer so many questions with it depends. So we wanted like a platform to all elaborate and collaborate to expand on what it depends on. But then, maybe Sonia or Meredith, you can kind of go off, but like that unnamed and untamed thing, like we didn't want to have to like fit it into a box of what we could talk about.
Yeah.
We wanted to cover it all like we do with our clients, where we're not really like one dimensional. It's kind of like, okay, well, where's the need? And like, what's the conversation? It's like where we talk about like sex, where we talk about training, where we talk about PEDs, mental health, what your period should look like. And I know that there's a lot of really great fitness podcasts out there with women. And I think we just wanted to add another layer and also service our clients as a whole with different perspectives. Because when my client hears Meredith talk about a subject and maybe she says it a little bit differently than I've said it, that client hears it better. And that only helps them. It's not a competition. It's just like who we're each speaking to in those moments, which has been super helpful as a coach to have a tool to say, listen to this episode, like you and I have done together.
Totally.
I agree 100%. I think that, it started just with us coming together and wanting to just talk and create impact, empower, and just bring value to our clients, and see how many people we can serve in the process, even if it's just literally getting someone to just think or create dialogue in their head, not to hire us as a coach, but just to create that impact with our experiences or with our guests' experiences. And then honestly, like for me personally, coming together with like these 2, they push me as a human being, not just as a coach. but me, like Meredith, the human being. They push me, they pull me, they kick me, they hug me. It's an abusive thing. No, I'm kidding. Like, but that's why I love working. I'm going to say it, working with them so much, because I learn from them, and it's never this place of, you know, it has never ever been this place of, you know, someone's going to do it first. It is literally like this, like, I constantly feel like it's like hands just constantly pushing each other up.
100%.
And if we learn something new, it's almost like that challenge with, hey, I learned this, or hey, I tried this, or hey, I saw this article. And then it's like push, because we really want to impact people's lives. And there is a bazillion people on this earth. So it's not that one coach can handle that. It's really about creating that community upward.
There's a really cool quote that I just thought of, and it's a rising tide raises all boats. And I feel like that's what we have together. And it's just like, it's been a game changer. And if we have client issues or like rough days, just to have a place where it's like, okay, this is what I'm hearing. And this is a great piece of like, we use each other, you know, like the best way possible. So it's been an awesome, like, I think we're going to make it way past 33. Like, we only are getting more fired up after every episode, and topics just, we can't keep them like, where it's just like, we're excited, you know?
Yeah.
I love it. It's so fun. Like, it's one of those things, whenever somebody asks me if they're thinking about doing it, I'm always like, listen, it's a lot of work. It's kind of like the approach of dieting or changing your habits or changing your mindset. Like, this is a lot of work. And at the same time though, it's some of the most rewarding, because when else were the four of us going to sit down? And for me, every time I think about this and usually ask it of my guests, my big one is because I feel like I'm constantly going through life, like trying to do 17 things at once. And I'm very like, I got to accomplish this. I got to accomplish that. This is one of my only times that I've ever really had the opportunity to sit down with other people and we all have each other's undivided attention. And I think that's really, really cool, because I don't think we get to say that as much these days. And the conversations just wind up being way more interesting. I think it has a lot to do with that piece of it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your guys' time. And thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Like I said, we're going to do a quick little lightning round. We'll just kind of go around. We'll do rapid fire in a circle like we just did for the coffee question. But if you want to elaborate, I'm not strict on time. I'm not going to like put a timer here and be like, you only have 30 seconds, go. So are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. All right. If you could only do one movement, like one movement in the gym for the rest of your life, what would it be? Like, you can be specific with an exercise or maybe type of workout, like, you know, a certain split that you follow, but only one. It's the only thing you could do. Hard question.
Pass.
Meredith's like, no, I can't do it. Sonia, what do you got?
I'm just going to say a hinge.
Split.
Yeah,
I would
pick a
do
split,
push-pull
Sarah.
legs.
Okay.
Oh, split? Yeah, for sure. Push-pull legs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a movement, but yeah.
That's fine.
I can't really
I said I made it. Yeah.
What you're saying is nothing. I'm not giving up
Nothing.
anything.
Yeah. They won't give up anything.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then.
All the exercises.
Okay. That's fair. What do you think is the most, I've asked Sonia this question before, but we'll see if she comes up with the same answer, because I don't know if she remembers what she said. What do you think is like the most underutilized lift by females? Like, what do you think that every female should have in their fitness routine that a lot of them don't?
Who wants to go? Do you want me to go first? Or?
Whoever wants to go.
I think hanging pulls from the bar. What am I thinking of right now? I just went so dead on it.
Row?
Inverted rows.
Yeah, that's what you said last time.
Underrated things. Yeah.
That's a good one. I like that. I would say a deadlift. I mean, like, I'm thinking, like, I don't see a lot of women deadlifting. Like, it feels good to pull heavy shit off the floor too.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I know.
I don't know. I don't know that I can
Meredith, I'm stumping you.
I literally can't. I can never pick one of anything. It causes a lot of havoc inside my soul, because I'm like,
that's why
if I pick one thing, it's going to cause imbalances. It's going to like, I can't pick one thing. Like, I can't. I'm going to say one thing I see as like a thing overall is not lifting heavy enough and not progressively continuing to lift heavy. Or maybe just, for example, like the hip thrust thing. I see a lot of people like kicking it at like, 400. And I'm like, okay, congratulations, you can move your joint around. But like, I really seriously doubt we're getting like actual contraction happening here at that poundage. I just feel like a lot of people can maybe lift a little bit more intelligently, and that maybe mean, less weight, more range. However, continuing to push that weight. I don't know.
I think that's a great one. I love it. I feel like, I could say even from personal experience, like this past year was the first year, like I really intentionally tracked any kind of lifting. Cause if I was doing that, I usually just did it with a personal trainer. So I was kind of like passive about it, if that makes sense, because they hung on to that information and I would see them regularly. But in working with Sonia, like she had me start mapping everything out, and I became the same way I am with food tracking. And I was already with it with food tracking, so much more aware of what I was actually lifting on a week-to-week basis, and then pushing myself just a little more just because I had the numbers in front of me. Like I would see from the week prior and be like, okay, like I could add 5 pounds to this. And then by the time 8 weeks go by, you're like, damn, I put 40 pounds on this lift. Like that's awesome. But if I wasn't doing that before, like it was a lot of just, I don't know, whatever feels good.
Yeah. Like I've had some clients like have like 5-pound weights, and I'm like, dude, your kid weighs like 5-6 times that. Like,
and you pick them
your
up.
First weighs more than that. Like, come on now.
So true. What do you think is, I'm going to go with like more of the mindset thing. If there's like one lie that women tell themselves, and I kind of want to use this as like a wrap up of the conversation, is like one lie that women tell themselves that you just wish you could snap your fingers and everyone would stop believing tomorrow, what would it be? Like maybe pick the top thing that we talked about, because I feel like that's really what we got through this conversation.
I think that any self-limiting belief sets a woman back from anything she can have, because at the other side of belief is the outcome, right? And so it really just comes down to whether you think you can or you can't. You're right,
100%.
Yeah. I'll maybe twist that a little to the I shoulds. I think women get really caught up with the I shoulds, and it's like, well, who says,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. Huge. All right, food questions. What's your absolute favorite food? Like, I'm going to go the only one thing eaten for the rest of your life, Meredith. Could you give me an answer for this?
I don't. I like so
What's
much.
your favorite food? Meredith's going first.
I think I like anything, honestly, except I'm not a sardine and anchovy fan. Other than that, like I will literally eat anything and be very happy with it.
All right, well, let's here's a way for me to make it more specific. If you had to choose between like a sweet or a salty, what category would you fit into?
Salty.
Okay. Sonia, what about you?
Carrots are my thing. And I know you're like, well, that's like, it's weird, like Maddie, my boyfriend, got me a box. He took out the chocolates and put carrots in there. And I was like, oh my God, these are so good. And he gave them to me during Valentine's Day. And I'm literally in a sushi restaurant eating the carrots out of them. I love carrots. It's not like an orthorexia thing. Like I just have always loved carrots. It's just kind of a thing. But like as like a food where it's like, oh, I'm kind of like, ooh, like it's probably sushi. I fucking love sushi.
Yeah, you're a big sushi girl. I feel like I always see sushi on your Insta stories.
Good. Yeah.
Sarah, what about you?
I have actually carrots are also one of my things. Like those games that you do at like bridal showers and stuff. Well, one of the questions is like, guess Sarah's favorite dessert. And like 3 people put carrots. Like, not that I like, again, like, it's just like one of those things. But I would say, yes, if I have to choose, like, if I choose just one food, then I'm leaving out a macro, right? So I'm going to choose sushi, because then I can have all of them in one roll.
Fair.
Oh, I like that. That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. Last question. what is your guys' shameless plug? Whether that's your plug for your show or just even like you kind of like your mantra that you stand on when it comes to your coaching. Like I want you guys to brag about yourselves because you all said at the beginning that you don't feel comfortable doing that. So that's the whole point.
I don't know. Y'all, I don't know, guys. I don't have a
Let's do it. Let's do
plug.
it for Unnamed and Untamed. What is the shameless plug for the show? Give me something. I'm going to push you guys because you would do it if this were any of your clients and you were asking them to say something positive about themselves. Here it is. Let's go.
Our show is for like, we're not giving you the protocols. Like we're not giving you the 1, 2, 3 steps. Like we're giving you the deep questions that you need to ask yourself and the real information that's going to help for you to achieve this goal, but then, your goals for, a lifetime.
Yeah. I think it's another way to like kind of get out of your bullshit excuses because we do call spades on the show and also like listen to the actual like data. We're really big into like, this is what the literature is saying. These are what the studies are saying. And then this is also what it looks like in application, because I think that getting out of the excuse and then having the information and then knowing how to use it is kind of like the long-term key to success.
Yeah. I actually am kind of proud that we don't have a shameless plug. I don't know, call me kind of silly, but I think that resonates more with who we are, that we don't have like a one-liner, because I think that we all are about application, and we really came about this, like as Sarah says, is it depends. And I think that sometimes having a one-liner, that kind of defeats that. It depends. We're all about the client. We're about the individual. We believe that there's always a way for people to achieve their goals. It may not be the way that they, want it to go. But it's going to be client-centered. It will always be client-centered. And I think that I like that about us.
Amazing responses. That's awesome. Well, again, thank you ladies so much for joining me. I really appreciate each of you for spending the time and letting the FYX listeners into your coaching philosophies. And I will 100% link all of your social media down in the show notes, all of that, and make sure everybody goes and checks out your podcast. It is awesome. We were talking about some of the episodes pre-show, so I'll give them the endorsement because I listen to it regularly and learn a lot from it every single week. So thank you guys for putting that amazing information out there on a consistent basis, because you're making coaches better too. Even if you're doing it with the client in mind, just know that that same environment that you're trying to cultivate among the three of you and sharing that information back and forth with each other, there's a lot of other people, myself included, who are benefiting from that. So you're all rock stars. And for everybody who listened today, we appreciate you guys for being here. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend. That's the best thing you can do to really not just, of course, we love when other people visit our podcasts and we're able to help spread our messages, but everything that we're saying, if it could just help one person, that's my big thing at the end of every single week. Like, it doesn't matter if 50 people listen to this, if 20 people listen to it, or hundreds of people do. There is just one person that feels some kind of impact from this conversation. That's what makes me feel good about turning on this microphone every single week. So thank you, everyone who's listening, for showing up, and we will catch you guys on our next episode. Thanks, ladies.